Thank you very much. So the government have this 5% deposit scheme. Have you looked at that?
Have we looked at the home guarantee scheme?
Do you know about it?
Yes, we know about it.
Okay.
We're aware of the parameters and the design of it, Senator.
Okay. And did you know that the government announced this policy 3 months before they asked the Treasury to conduct any modelling on price impacts and the like? Sorry,
Well,
I've just realised I'm chewing my pencil and I'm not allowed to do that. That's not a question.
Well, I'm not aware, Senator, of the consultation arrangements and discussions between the Treasury and the Treasurer on the scheme.
Okay. Well, you're the prudential regulator. You look at risk in the system, do you not?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's good. You do a good job. So, were you consulted on the modelling undertaken by the Treasury?
We were not consulted on the modelling. I don't believe we've seen modelling, but we were consulted on the scheme itself by the Treasury, which is an early version of the scheme.
You mean the changes to the scheme? Or do you mean the scheme as it was under the previous government?
The scheme, the current home guarantee scheme.
Okay. And what advice did you give on the scheme design?
So we were, I think we took this on notice, Senator, and gave you a response to it, but broadly we were asked about the effect on the LMI market and if there were any stability concerns. I think that was the question.
Okay. So you haven't seen the Treasury modelling on the price impacts?
So let me confirm. I think the answer is no, Senator.
You haven't been provided?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, I would assume then that you weren't consulted on the modelling that the Treasury conducted on the price impacts.
So I haven't seen them, Senator.
Sorry. My question is, so thank you for answering that question. That's very clear. My question before was, were you consulted in relation to the modelling done on price impacts by the Treasury?
So I think the answer to that is no.
Okay. So what do you think about more 95% loans in the system? I mean, what does that mean for the overall risk management of the banking system?
Well, Senator, I don't want to comment on the policy. That's an issue for government. What is an issue for APRA is the safety of the system. It's something that we look at very, very closely.
Yeah.
At the moment, what we can say about first home buyers and, as I mentioned to Senator Pocock, the key aggregate that we watch is high LVR lending, which we would say is currently at moderate levels, currently
Sure.
quite low. But it is something I should add. It's a new scheme. We have not seen data flow through yet, but it is something, as is a number of issues in the financial system, that we would watch very closely.
A 95% mortgage is by definition a high-risk mortgage. Is a high LVR?
It is a high LVR, Senator.
It is. So when you look at your macroprudential statement from last week, you are looking at investor as well as owner-occupied, as you just canvassed with Senator Pocock.
Yes, Senator.
So you're putting a cap in place of no more than 20% of the entity's loans, right?
For high debt-to-income
Yeah.
lending.
Now, when you say 20% of loans, are we talking about 20% of the loans in total, or is it measured by value or some other? Is it just accrued 20% loans?
So, as I explained to Senator Pocock, we have two buckets that we're applying.
I understand
here.
that.
Yeah. So, if you look at take investor loans, for example, of the total flow of investor loans, what we're saying is that only 20% of those can be greater than 6 by DTI. That's what we're saying.
So doesn't that, by numbers, so doesn't that mean that if you are going to restrict the number of high LVR loans,
High DTI loans.
Well, but they would also likely be high LVR loans.
I don't think that is right, Senator.
If they're owner-occupiers and they're using this scheme, they would be.
Senator, so what we see is in the data is that first home buyers, as I was explaining to Senator Pocock,
Yep.
Would usually be constrained not by high debt to income constraints, but by LVR constraints that the banks would apply.
That's right.
And that is not something that we are capping. We are capping high debt to income.
The income.
Correct, high debt to income.
So if you look at Melbourne, where average income is about 100 grand, the median house price is about 900 grand, it's going to make it pretty tough for a lot of people.
What's the question, Senator?
Well, I mean, aren't you ultimately going to be rubbing out people with lower incomes who could have used this scheme because you have higher income earners using the scheme?
So, Senator, I think it's, as I just go back to my previous response, with the scheme itself, we've seen no data yet. It's a brand new scheme. We want to see what the data looks like before we draw any conclusions on what the flows might look like and what the constraints might look like.
Sure, but you're putting a ceiling on the number of those loans.
We're putting a ceiling, we're putting a cap, a flow cap, on high debt to income lending. And as I explained, if you're a first home buyer, those caps would generally not affect you. There might be some that are affected, but generally not affect you. It's the high LVR lending that would usually capture first home buyers.
So the higher the income, the further you are away from hitting your DTI cap. By definition, right?
Yes.
So, sorry, if you have a high income, let's say we have two people. We've got a higher income person earning, I don't know, $200,000, and then you've got a lower income earner earning $75,000. The person that has the greater income is going to be further away from hitting the cap or the restriction on getting the loan, aren't they?
That's correct, Senator.
Yeah, so if the same two people are using the 5% deposit scheme, isn't there a risk that the higher income earner could make better use of the government program compared to the lower income earner, given you've now introduced an income distinction?
So, Senator, again, you've linked the cap that we've introduced to the home guarantee scheme, and what I'm trying to explain is we like to make our comments on empirics. We want to have a look at the data flowing from this new scheme. We are watching very closely, and I'm just very reluctant to make any conclusions on the basis of what may or may not happen. We want to have a look at the data.
Okay. Well, there's an article in the Financial Review today which says mortgage brokers say a rush of first home buyers taking up the federal government's loan guarantee scheme has blown out borrowing processing times, with the Commonwealth Bank under pressure to, make people work on weekends and stuff. So there's going to be more demand coming through the scheme, isn't there?
More demand for houses coming through the home guarantee.
There'll be more people using because of the removal of the income caps and the removal of the place caps. By definition, I think anyone reasonable would agree that there'll be more people using this scheme than there were before.
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, isn't it likely that a lot of the people that are going to be using the 5% scheme could actually hit the debt-to-income cap?
I don't think I can add to my answer, Senator. I really want to have a look at the data. Then I'm very happy to come back and talk more about it once we see what happens with the scheme.
Okay.
Senator,
Well,
you're almost at 10 minutes.